So this, guys, is a Duo-R, as you can tell from the branding there on the front, which is one of the numerous revisions of the PC Engine in Japan. There's about 1 million of them, from the regular base system, which is a little tiny guy that's actually one of the smallest home consoles ever made. And then the CD add-on came later, which could then be attached to the side. This console right here is the second generation of the Turbo Duo, or the regular PC Engine Duo as it's called in Japan. The Duo is simply just a PC Engine and a PC Engine CD system put together into one console, kind of like the CDX. The Duo-R is the second revision, the second revision of the system. The previous one was a black system, and this one is obviously a white version. And there was actually another one that came after this called the Duo-RX, which is essentially just the exact same system. It even looks the same. It just came with a different controller. It came with a 6-button as opposed to the 2-button that the Duo-R comes with. This is the base of the system, the console itself. And as you can see, right here is where the HuCard games would go. There's a little door here, and inside the door, that's where you slide in your HuCards. And in the front bottom here is your controller port. So notice that there is only one, and that's always been one of the things I couldn't stand about the TurboGrafx and both the PC Engine, is you can only plug in one controller at a time. In order to plug in any more than that, you'd have to buy the optional multi-tap for the system. And finding a multi-tap for the Japanese system is even trickier. I had to order one from overseas, and it's not cheap. So anyway, that's how the HuCard portion of the system works. I do like the fact that it has this little door. It prevents the dust from getting in it, which is always nice. This right here is where you would put in your CD games, and there is an open button there, and then as you can tell right there it says push close. So if we open that up, you can see the tray right there where you would put your Super CD or CD-ROM 2 games. Now, the cool thing about the Duo systems is they came with the system card, the newest revision of the system card, which is the 3.0, if I'm not mistaken, automatically built into the system. So there was no need to actually use a system card inside the HuCard slot, which was really awesome. So as far as video goes, on the back here, and as you can tell, the design on this system is very simple and straightforward, which I like. You know, not a lot of extra stuff around or features that you won't use or this or that or whatever. It's simple and to the point. It's nice and clean. There is the AV out, and it's actually a pretty big input, as you can tell. And then right there on the bottom corner is the AC adapter port. And that's it. That's really all there is to it as far as the design goes. But you know, it's a really good looking system. I really do like it. And it's even got these kind of vent fan looking things right here across the top, which I think is kind of a cool design choice. But yeah, very simple, very clean. And like I said, I do like the door for the HuCards. And when you power it up, this actually lights up red. I know a lot of people actually mod these when they get them and put in a purple or a blue light here so that it matches the branding. But you know, I'm not going to open up my PC Engine just simply to do that. So anyway, guys, let's hook it up and I'll show you what it can do. Alright guys, so we are all hooked up and ready to see this thing in action. So I'm going to show you a couple things. I'll show you how the HuCards work, and for that we're going to be using Gradius, which is the import copy. And for the CD, we will be taking a look at Fighting Street, which is Street Fighter 1. This is actually the American version of it. Speaking of which, the PC Engine Duo-R, and the Turbo Duo for that matter, when it comes to the HuCard games that go in here, the PC Engine can only play the Japanese HuCards. Like, for example, this one right here, the Gradius, is a Japanese HuCard. Now, they look the exact same as the US ones, but the PC Engine can only play Japanese region HuCards. In order to play US games on a Duo, you would actually need some sort of a HuCard converter or a mod or a switch or something like that. This one that I have is completely stock. It doesn't have any sort of modifications to it. I really haven't felt the need to. And to be honest, there's just so many more Japanese games out there that are that are great, and a lot of them end up being cheaper than the US releases, so why bother? As far as the CDs go, though, however, what's really cool about this one is the Duo systems are region free, so you can play Japanese CDs and US CDs the same way, and they both work great. And as far as saving and loading goes for CD games, there's a kind of like a flash backup inside the system with a very kind of a little bit of internal memory to save your games to, kind of like the Sega CD or the Saturn. So let's go ahead and pop in Gradius, and I'll show you how that goes in there. Now, a lot of these HuCards come with these little sleeves, which I always thought was really neat. Keeps them safe and protected, since they are kind of exposed. Okay, so let's get Gradius in there. So we just pop the door open, slide it in, and then flip the power switch there. And as soon as we do, you can see it coming up on the screen here. So it kicks right into the HuCard, not a problem, and looks great, sounds great. Graphical quality from these, at least from these AV units, are fantastic for the PC Engine. So yeah, and even when the HuCard's in, you can still shut the door if you wanted to while the game's playing, no big deal. Me personally, I usually leave it open just because I like the design on the HuCard and I like to be able to see it. But anyway, so we're going to take that out and I'll show you how a CD works. Alright guys, and as I said before, we're going to be using Fighting Street for the TurboGrafx CD for this test. So let's open it up. Go ahead and pop that thing down. Throw it in here. Close the lid, and when we turn it on, we get this screen right here, which is the default screen that you'll see when you pop in a CD. You'll see the Super CD-ROM with the version of the system card, which in this case is version 3.0, and it'll tell you to press the run button, which is the start button on the controller. Now, before we go any further, I'm actually going to show you the controller that the Duo-R comes with. This is a Duo-R controller. This is the stock controller that the system comes with. Now, as you can tell, it looks a lot like just an NES controller. It's got, your basic D-pad, select, run is the obvious equivalent to start, and then there's a 2-in-1 button that acts just like a B and an A. What's cool about these, however, though, is being that this is actually the controller that the system comes bundled with. It has turbo switches, which is really useful, and it has 3 different levels, from this one's off to medium and then to full speed turbo. And being that the TurboGrafx has a ton of shoot-'em-up games and stuff like that, that definitely comes in handy. You'll be using that turbo a lot. So it's kind of a shame that more systems didn't come with controllers like this that had the little turbo switches on them. Now, as cool as this controller is, to be honest with you, it's not going to meet the demands of a lot of other games, like a lot of the fighting games. Street Fighter 2, for example. How are you going to play that on 2 buttons? It's extremely awkward. So for that, what I recommend doing is getting one of these right here. This is a Avenue Pad 6, and they can be pretty hard to find, but well worth it if you can grab one. This one is essentially the same kind of controller. It has a little bit better D-pad. There's your select and run down there, and then it adds the extra sets of buttons. So there's your 2 and your 1, just like on the original one, and they add a 3 here, and then a 4, 5, and 6 up here that act as the other buttons when playing your fighting games like Street Fighter or Martial Champion. God forbid you'd ever play that because it's terrible. But there are quite a few games on the PC Engine that take advantage of this. This right here at the top where it says B and A, you can change the controller type depending on the game you're playing. So say if it's a game that uses just 2 buttons, you can change the controller, the default controller setup, to a 2-button setup where you're just using 2 and 1. Which is really convenient. So basically what I do, I just kind of use this one for everything now. As you can see, these also have the turbo switches, but there are only just the 2 settings, turbo and then off. And it only works for buttons 2 and 1, just like on a regular pad. Up here, there is a slow motion switch, which, you guys know how those old slow motion controllers would work. It would just pause the game and unpause the game, pause the game and unpause the game as fast as possible. So yeah, definitely worth picking up an Avenue Pad 6. Thing about these controllers are, at least for the Japanese system, the cables themselves are not very long. I think they're only about 3 feet or so, and I think that's because Japanese living rooms are so tiny. But anyway, let's plug this in and we will get going with some Fighting Street. Okay, so we've got our controller plugged in and we are looking at our CD-ROM system startup screen, so let's go ahead and hit run. And as you can see, it says just a moment there, and it is loading up the disc. And remember, this is an American CD. And there it is. It's pretty quick and to the point. No BS at all for that. So, you know, we can jump right in if we need to and start playing a horrible Street Fighter game. But anyway, guys, that's how it works. And as you can see, there's the red LED that I was talking about when you power it on. Another thing about the Turbo Duo, or at least the Duo-R, and I think any of the CD systems, the TurboGrafx PC Engine CD systems, are that the CD, this was before there was really any major copy protection on these systems. So if you have burnt games or ISOs of some of the, you know, ridiculously expensive PC Engine games, and you know, I'm normally not one to advocate that kind of thing, but you know, there are PC Engine games that are upwards of $1,000 each, and you know, if you just wanted to try them or whatever, or make backups of the ones you have so that you don't scratch them, you can, and this thing will play them without a hitch. You don't even need a mod or anything like that. You can just pop them in and play it just like any normal game. What I'm going to show you next is how the internal battery works in terms of saving and loading. So if we turn the system on with nothing in either slot, we're still brought to the CD-ROM system startup screen, which is going to be your default. Now when you're here, if you want to look at the internal stuff, what you do is you would just hit select, and that brings you to the backup RAM screen. Now obviously, I don't know if you guys can read that, but this top option here is going to be your game save storage area. So as you can see, there are the save files right there, and luckily these are in English. So there's Cosmic Fantasy 2, Fighting Street, Ys 3, Ane-san, Dungeon Explorer, and Riot City right there. So, and you can actually just, you know, if you ever wanted to get rid of something, you could just click on it, and it'll say backup RAM delete, yes or no. For this one, we're going to click no. And if you ever want to go back out, you just hit the button, and then go down to exit, and boom, you're back to the screen. So it's a really neat system. It has tons of games on it, like I mean tons of games, well over 1,000. And they can be found pretty reasonably for the most part. There are a few really, really expensive titles out there, but as far as, you know, just good games on the PC Engine, there's so many more to choose from than on the TurboGrafx. It's just so versatile, and you can do so much with it. And like I said, really the only kind of crappy things about it is that, yeah, you have to buy a multi-tap for you know, for more than one player, which is kind of a bummer, especially when you have a Japanese system, unless you can manage to get one that comes with it, in which case, hey, great. But yeah, I mean, it's an awesome system. It really is. It has an amazing selection of games. You know, it's right up there with the Genesis for me in terms of, you know, how I kind of define 16-bit gaming. Nothing against the Super NES, love the Super NES as well, but I was a kid who grew up with the TurboGrafx first. I had the TurboGrafx right when it launched, and that always made me curious about the Japanese version, because I'd always heard about these games that came out over there, you know, that would never come out here, and I'd want to see them and play them, and never got the chance till much later in life when I picked up this Duo-R. I definitely recommend getting the R over the other models, or the RX, which is the one after it, just because I've heard in the past few years these have had a tendency to overheat and die out. Not these models in particular, but the ones preceding it, the black Turbo Duos in the PC Engine Duo. So if you're in the market for one of these, I definitely say to go the Duo-R or Duo-RX route. You know, you'll have definitely many great games to play, and all kinds of cool stuff to check out. So alright, that's going to wrap things up for our PC Engine Duo-R overview video, and I hope you guys have enjoyed watching, and as always, stay classic.